Hello and welcome to a video from me for this week. Hello, hello. A lot has been going on online and in the world. And so, I really was able to just cherry pick a few things to talk about. Today's going to be a little bit of a double feature. I'm going to post this video and then I have another video that I'm going to post right after this one. For this first video, I want to talk about something that took the TikTok world by storm this week and last week. You saw the title. You know I'm going to be talking about the Danish Deception. Now, if you have been living under a rock or you only use YouTube and I'm the only content creator you watch that talks about things that happened in other areas of the internet, then you may not know anything about this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am the wrong person to watch to get caught up on everything. I am not going to give a full recap because, to be honest with you, I didn't watch the whole thing. The story time that this particular topic of conversation comes from was 25 parts. I lost interest in part 5, and I'm going to tell you guys why. You know that sound that's like, today drained me. You know the one from Real Housewives of Atlanta? That's how I feel about this story time. I started off, I was like, okay, I see you, girl. And within no time at all, I was like, and that's enough out of you. And I think it's because for me, the story that was being told on a premise of, I'm a victim, something bad happened to me, and I need to warn you guys that this could happen to you too. But from the beginning, I could not follow along with that premise because what happened to this young woman was completely 100% avoidable. And the fact that she believed so intensely that it was something she needed to warn people about, I could not identify with. Now, I say I couldn't identify with it because there were so many people who came out after and they said, oh my gosh, Onyeka, that's her name. They said, Onyeka, I went through this. I went through this. But for me, a person who I cannot relate to what they were talking about at all. I cannot relate to being in this situation. I just found the whole story, I just lost interest immediately. And so I'm going to go through the story for as long as I possibly can, which is again till part 5. I'm going to recap what I thought about her going into it and why I was initially interested. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the feedback that she received because it was explosive. I mean, she first posted that story, I want to say at the beginning of last week. We're almost at the middle of this week and people are still talking about it. They're still doing reaction videos, etc., etc. And then I want to talk about some storyteller advice that I would give anybody that wanted to hop on the internet and start talking. This advice is something that I plan on sharing on my TikTok as well, just because when she started telling this story, she was like, I wanted to be like Risa Tisa. Risa Tisa inspired me. And you guys know, I'm very clear on why Risa Tisa was different than any other storyteller. When she first went viral back in 2024, I damn near had a panic attack. I almost had a nervous breakdown. I almost had to go on a grippy sock vacation because I did not understand why this Black woman telling a story of romantic woe was being loved and embraced by the internet at the rate she was. 1 million followers over a weekend, book deals, movie deals. She was basically living my dream. And she was doing it in a time where I had decided I could no longer do that. I couldn't tell stories. I couldn't because of how I had been dragged all over the damn internet. And, people can say, oh, well, Risa Tisa, everybody wasn't supportive of her. So many more people were that weren't. That's why she's in the position that she's in today. And so I set out to figure it out. I literally had to break out the notepad and paper and do pros, cons, or do compare contrast between me and other people who had been dogged to the white meat for telling their stories and why we failed, but Risa succeeded. And it came down to something that was so simple. People need to believe you were actually a victim and you didn't actively perpetuate your own harm, in this story where you're supposed to be a victim, like things were happening that were really 100% out of your control. And I will admit, I have stories like that where people are like, whoa, You didn't deserve that. The one where I got left at the Papacito. Even though there are some people who would say, why did you meet up with him after you? I think most people, and if you don't know about that story, it's something that happened to me a couple years ago. You can go on my channel, you can find it. Maybe someone will fill you in the comments. I'm not going to do it. But in that story, when I told it, there were people who were like, I may not have done this and this, but you didn't deserve that. That is not something whoa. And so with those stories, when people can see that you are actually a victim, they're way more compassionate. They're way kinder. But if you've got a lot of stories or you got things happen to you where it looks like you're actively helping someone take advantage of you, you're an active participant in your own pain, you lose people. Also, and this is super important, and this is not something that people like to think about or that they even notice, people liked Risa Tisa. They liked her delivery. She's very straightforward, very monotone, straightforward, extremely detail-oriented, methodical in the way that she relayed the message. It was almost like listening to a female, what is that guy's name from Dateline? You know, the one that's like, what's his name? Ken Morrison, James Morrison, David Morrison, something. You know, the one that's like, it was a cold night and a rainy day. And then, no, even then, that's too much inflection. Like, the girl wasn't playing games as far as trying to sound so dramatic. The story was dramatic in and of itself. I think that also helps bring in male listeners. Men tend to be turned off by the dramatics. All in all, people genuinely felt bad for her, and they liked her as a storyteller. And if you have those two things working for you, the sky's the limit. And that's what we saw with Risa. But if that's not your situation, like the storyteller of the Danish Deception, like me, then you're not going to have no Risa Tisa success, baby. And I don't think a lot of people get that. But anyway, we'll come back to that in a moment. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will, actually. But we'll come back to some other points that I've noticed when it comes to storytelling. But first, let's recap what I can when it comes to the Danish Deception. I did not watch all 25 parts. You won't make me watch all 25 parts. Because by part 5 or 6, I was like, oh, this is dumb. This is dumb. And I want to say, I feel the same way about shows like The Tender Swindler. I feel the same way about shows like Love Crime. It's on Netflix, and it's about women who have been, swindled by men and cheated and whatever by men, and the lengths that Netflix is willing to help them to recoup and to get back at these men. The reason why I don't relate to these things is because it involves women giving men large amounts of money. Many of you know I was involved with a remote lover. Yes. For 2 years, a little over 2 years. And what he wanted from me was for me to spend all of my money to see him and to facilitate us getting together. He never offered anything more than $100 to have us get together. And if we were to meet up and to be around each other, it would be because I spent all of my money to do it. And while the attraction was there, the energy was there, I definitely felt just extremely drawn to him for whatever reason. That money situation kept us apart and continues to keep us apart and will keep us apart forever. In no world, in no lifetime, in no universe do I believe in giving a man money who has not already proven that he is more than willing to financially take care of you, is not legally bound to you, and who takes from you without immediately restoring what he took. As women in romantic relationships with men, it already costs us just for them to have access to our bodies. Just for a man to have consistent access to your body as a woman, you have to be on some form of birth control. Whether it's actual something you take in, whether it's something you have inserted in your body, whether you are monitoring on a calendar trying to fix, you can't just be out there willy-nilly doing whatever you want to and having him have access to your body. If you are of reproduction age, you're ovulating, you're doing whatever. If that's not the case, you still need to protect yourself, because we are constantly ebbing and flowing when it comes to our hormones. Our biological biomes are different. A man can come up all up in here and completely wreck your biology and the way your body functions. I have seen and have been a person who has experienced men coming in a woman's life and all of a sudden her lips are dry all the time. Her skin is dry all the time. Her eczema done flared up. She has nausea all the time. She can't stop having bacterial vaginosis. She's got yeast infections all the time because that damn man is not taking care of himself, and he's coming all up in here and ruining the program. Also, I remember when I was in my 20s and HPV was a huge worry. A lot of young millennial women were dealing with the fact that HPV was this thing that was apparently something else we needed to worry about. And I had friends, I knew many women, at least 4, who had to go in and have cells scraped from their cervix because some man who was a carrier, men are carriers of HPV, some man had come up all in their life and carried this to them, and they needed to now go get their cells scraped so they didn't develop cervical cancer. Just dealing with men is a hazard to your biological health. And in order to protect yourself from that, there's all kinds of shots and things you need to do and ways you need to be aware. So if I'm already risking my life to be involved with you, what makes you think I'm going to run you any of my money ever? And I understand in these situations, these men are just as good as women who take advantage of men because they know that in order to get this money from women, they've got to be able to endear to them, right? Endear to them in some kind of way. Get on their good side in some kind of way. With women, when it comes to taking advantage of men, it's easy. Just offer them some sex. I'll give you a little bit. Well, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes they're so dead set on not giving you anything just because they want to have sex with you that they go overboard with it, right? Nope, you never experienced that. You never experienced a man. Never mind. But for a lot of women, sex is the way to get him to do whatever you want. Or if you happen to be a really gorgeous woman, just say you'll go out with him. You'll be on his arm. You'll be there to raise his social profile. Very easy exchange. You don't have to be into him. You don't have to want him. You just have to be cute, be there, and be physically available to him. And now look at you, queen of the castle, queen of his bank accounts. There you go. But for men to get something out of women, they have to endear themselves to them emotionally. If I make her fall in love with me, I can get out of her anything I want. And I think women really respond to vulnerability. If a man that you saw and you thought was so great and he's in love with you, oh, now he needs help. Here we come. Here we come. Easy enough, right? And I think men know how to do that. And that's one of the things that I really picked up on when I watched The Tinder Swindler. When I watched, I think it's called Love Fraud. I think that's what it's called on Netflix. And when I was looking at The Danish Deception, you have a woman who's having this completely different emotional reality with this con man, with this person who's taking advantage of her. And it's painful that she doesn't know it and she doesn't realize it. And I'm very happy that I'm made up the way that I am. Because I'll be damned. Over my dead body, will I give you anything? I think the most I've ever given a man is $10. And that was to show him how easy it was to send me money on Apple Cash. Yeah. I was like, see, it's just $10. Look, I can send it to you. And I knew that was going to piss him off. And it did. But I will never. Now, if I was ever to be married, that might be different. But he would have to prove to me 1,000 times over that he knew that I don't play that. Another reason why I don't identify with stories like this is, why do these women have so much damn money in the first place? While I'm watching The Danish Deception, I'm looking at it. You know, first thing that comes up is, she's like, he needs $50,000. And he was talking about it. 50,000 isn't that much. Bitch, what? What? And this is something people have been talking about a lot on social media lately. For you, 50,000 might be someone else's 50 million. It might be someone else's 5,000. Everybody is not broke. That's something that people like to say a lot, especially black people. Black folks like to say that a lot. I'm seeing that on social media. 50,000 might be nothing to you. It will always be something to me. As an adult woman, I have never been in a situation where I can give somebody $50,000 and say, I'm sure you'll give it back to me. It's not a big deal. When I watch shows like Tinder Swindler, Love Fraud, whatever it is, the fact that these women are able to give such large amounts of money to these men, I'm just like, maybe I need to go out and shave my head and glue on a mustache and pretend my name is Stefan instead of Stephanie and see what I can get out of somebody. Damn. I cannot relate to these stories because of the extreme amount of capital that these women have just laying around to give to these men who simply ask. And that's kind of the final reason why I wasn't able to relate to Onyeka at all, and I just stopped listening. She was fighting to give this man her resources, fighting to shower these monetary gifts on him. How can you be upset then that he took that from you? How can you be upset that what? Again, like I said, if people are able to pick up on the fact that you were an active participant in your own demise, the level of compassion and empathy is a lot less. And I think, again, because I am such a stalwart for not giving men money, I really don't identify with that. And then also, I think as a certified BA, broke adult, I really can't identify with having thousands and thousands of dollars to give someone else, period, point blank, no matter who you are. So she lost me very early on in the story, but I will attempt right now to recap what I do remember and give a little bit of my opinion on what I do remember. So I liked it in the beginning. I thought it was cute. She goes to Croatia. Oh, that was the other thing I couldn't identify with. I ain't been nowhere in years. This has been one of the hardest years for me when it comes to travel. I haven't been anywhere really all year. I went to go see Beyonce in Las Vegas. That's the only time I traveled this year. Oh, I went to LA and stayed with friends, but that's not how I was able to do it or how I chose to do it a couple years ago. So when she was like, yeah, we went to Croatia and then we went to Monaco and then I was in here and I was there, I was like, girl, what? So she also lost me with that. But at the beginning, I thought it was really, really cute. I thought the fact that she was like, I just want to travel and went somewhere and was on a beach and met this man. I was like, oh, that's cute. I love travel romances. Well, I did until this last guy I met. Now I'm scared. But I used to love like going out of town and meeting people and, maybe having fun and whatever. I never met anybody in a different place that it actually turned into anything real. But I love that part of traveling, like being in a new place, meeting new people. I love that. So we'll see when I travel again, we shall see what happens. But anyway, I really liked that. I was a little thrown off when she talked about being so attracted to him. Blonde hair, blue eyes, Danish model. Onyeka is a Nigerian woman, and whenever a black woman is describing, okay, so I'm about to, you guys, I might lose some of you with this, but that's okay. I'm not running for president. I'm not running for city council. Hell, so I'm going to say this, but I'm always a little bit turned off, or always kind of like, huh? Or I just, when I hear a black woman specifically talking about a white man's beauty so effusively, I will always feel a little bit of separateness myself. Like, even though I've dated interracially, I have my own history with blonde hair, blue eyed men. Absolutely. When she's describing him like that, I guess I kind of got like a little bit of a red flag went off because I was like, how? I don't know. I don't know. Why are you so excited about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always looking for, and I guess sensitive to, and this is what a lot of people ended up pointing out about her, when they found out, yes, she's a Nigerian woman raised in Texas, but she doesn't have a lot of Nigerian friends, and she was actually a contestant on The Bachelor in a very, very bad wig and weave, fighting for the love of a white man. And in general, it does seem that she places whiteness on a pedestal from the outside looking in. And so when she's like, we saw this man and he was so beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes. He was just striking. I was kind of like, but was he though? And it turns out that In my opinion, no, he was not. There are a lot of videos because they used to have a couples page on TikTok, and TikTok don't forget nothing. So there's a lot of videos of them together as a couple riding around. A lot of people were clowning her for this video right here because she's got her chin all poked out and she looks really, really happy to be in this reality with this white man. And again, it's fine, but I am always sort of like, why are we why are okay, why are you attracted to what you're attracted to? And that's such a weird thing to ask because so what? Like people are attractive, you know? But I for whatever reason that caused me to raise a red flag. And not only because of her description of him, but when she said, "Oh, we were so attracted to each other." It's also vice versa for me. I also kind of raise a bit of a red flag when white men are very interested in black women and call it my black American like racial, you know, trauma, okay? But even as a black woman who has dated white men, there's always a story there. There's always a reason why he was open to it. And again, I'm 41 years old. So, you know, younger generations, you guys might have had a different reality. But I've always dated, if I've dated a white man, the black sheep of the family, ironically, right? He's the one that people are like, oh, well, he's kind of the weirdo. He's kind of the weird kid. Like, we don't really, I'll never forget going to Thanksgiving with my one and only boyfriend who happened to be a white man and the disappointment that his mother exhibited about me at the table. She literally said, well, he usually dates spirited blondes. So, okay, bitch, but that's not who's at the table today. Like, I don't, when the kids were screaming about pasta and lobster, I was like, okay, but who's going to be offering that to you? Like who? And I'm not going to sit up here and say there aren't some beautiful interracial relationships. I see them on social media all the time. I'm just always kind of like, what happened in his life that he would be going after a black woman or that he would be excited? What happened? And now I also point kind of a finger at the difference in oh, I'm trying to be politically correct about this, but what kind of black women they're attracted to. What's going on with that? Like, I'm always going to ask those questions because, and I think it's because I grew up in an era where I literally had white men, white boys say to me, we would only date you guys if there were no other white women around. If there were no other white women, we would date you.
What's one race you wouldn't date?
I'm not into black women.
Oh. Why is this always the answer? I need to know this right now.
So you think I'm ugly?
No, that's not it. You're conventionally a very pretty girl. It's just a preference. I actually tried to kind of see a black girl for a little bit, but I just couldn't, like, get into it. Like, I mean, if a girl's half, it's different. But, like, a girl who's, like, fully black, for some reason, it's just...
So it's just, like, a preference of skin tone. So you don't like black people?
No, I love black people, but I'm just not attracted sexually to black women.
And then when there was a white man who was interested, he wasn't interested enough to like step out and do something about it, or he was, like I said, the black sheep of the family where everybody was kind of like, well, it's another one of his schemes dating you, so I guess welcome, even though you're not a spirited blonde. So anyway, from the beginning I was kind of like questioning it, but I think I just go through that whenever I see an interracial relationship, whenever it's a black woman in an interracial relationship, whenever it's a dark-skinned black woman, I'm always like, what's happening here? How are you two socialized? How did this come about?
I want to also say, just to clear some things up, because I don't want people who are out there who are in happy interracial relationships to be like, that bitch thinks she knows me and my man, she knows nothing. So this is based on my experiences and what I've observed about the reasons and the types of white men who seek out relationships with black women. I know sometimes it can just be a very neutral personal preference. But as a black woman who was sought out by a white man who had an entire room of his little art gallery or art studio that he painted in dedicated to painting black butts, and who was like obsessed with like black women's bodies and hypersexualizing them, and I didn't even know that I was being fetishized. I just thought, oh, he just likes me. I'm very very I'm very very hyper aware and always very curious and just aware of the fact that if you're talking about a group of people that have been told from the beginning of time that they are the standard, especially they're the standard within the patriarchy. And then you have a group of women who have been told and who are living in a society that believes that they are not the standard. What happens to bring these two groups of people together? And sometimes it's because on the one hand, if we're talking about the white men, sometimes it's because they are really, really outliers. They're not like what they have been taught to be, whether that is their religious practices, their sociological beliefs, their moral beliefs. Sometimes they have, just developed themselves in such a way that they're able to see outside of societal norms, and that frees them up to be attracted to whomever, right? And then sometimes it is because they are actual deviant personalities. I'm always paying attention to why people decide to seek out the relationships that they seek out, why some things are considered taboo, some things are considered completely okay. And that goes from everything to looking at why some people like to do things like polyamory and why certain people like to and seek out people of certain races. Now, I will tell you, in some situations, you just have people that come together and see something in each other, and it's great. I know for me, the best experiences that I had with white men were when I was in school and we were able to connect based on like projects and stuff we were working on. So it was a mental connection that happened first and not necessarily a physical connection. But I have never looked across the room and been seen by a white man and him be like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful," and him have any sense whatsoever. They have always been the most devious, ridiculous motherfuckers that have ever walked the face of the earth. And if you go back to that clip that I played about the white guy saying he doesn't like black women and saying if she's half, that's different. So I really have had this conversation with white men before, saying that they only date mixed race black women and they stay away from full black women or black women that have very, very Afrocentric features. I thought about this a lot when Prince Harry got with Meghan. A lot of people were like, "Oh, she's a black princess. He's with a black woman. He's with," and I thought, how many white men have you talked to? If you've talked to them, then you would know that for a lot of white men, a mixed race black woman is a completely different thing than dating a full black woman. So a lot of people were very impressed with Harry, like, "Oh, look what he went and got." But I was like, "Oh, of course. If he's going to date out of his race, it's going to be a light skinned mixed race black woman and not a darker skinned black woman." Could you have imagined him taking a dark skinned black woman up in Buckingham Palace? They wouldn't have even lasted a year. They would have never made it to the wedding, in my opinion. By the same token, you have some white men who are only interested in dark skinned black women, but they have to be the smallest. They have to be the skinniest. They have to be very thin. They have to be like Onyeka, honestly. So I did give her a little space there. I was like, maybe she's had a better experience with them. But I know for me, as a curvier black woman with more Afrocentric features, who's not in a small body, um, I have never had a good experience with white men. Like when I sit back and think about it, yes, they were there, they were available, they asked me on dates, but I paid for it dearly with my sanity. I could honestly write a very, very politically incorrect essay about everything that I've observed when it comes to interracial dating in my 41 years of life. I won't. But what I will say is my observations are based on my experiences, and they have been validated by not only my experiences, but other experiences of people out in the world. One more time, I want to reiterate, if you are in a happy, beautiful, wonderful, um, committed interracial relationship and you happen to be a black woman and he is a white man and he is the best thing that ever happened to you, I say more power to you. I love it. I love it for you, girl. Go ahead. But in my experience, I would have been underneath the jail for with any of the white men that wanted me. And so when people say, "Oh, girl, if you want a good man, you got to get you a white man," I laugh in their face, and I laugh so hard that I hope some spit gets on their cheek. Every white man is not the answer, and every white man is not going to have the best interest at heart when it comes to dating black women. And I'm very, very hyper aware of that. And if you want to be clear, I've said it before, I've said it many times. My best experiences with men have been with Latino men. And there's a whole thing you could go about there too with the racism and the negative attitudes that Latinos have against black people. That's a whole another conversation. But my best experiences with stand-up men of good characters, Latino men, and black men. Just keeping it real. So that's my experience. I know some of you might have a different experience, so you might have found a different thing. But anytime I see a black woman getting really, really excited about some random white man, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Where are we assuming that he is not a serial killer? Are we assuming that he has our best interest at heart? Or has he figured out, and I'm going to talk about this later on in the video, that within every culture, a special place is held on the mantle for the almighty white man, and he's looking for an opportunity to take advantage of you. Open your eyes to stop. Now, I know all white men aren't like that, but I got to go with my experience here, and unfortunately, I do raise a red flag. Anyway, if that's not your experience, it's not, but it has been mine. So let's go back to the video.
So I'm always wondering and questioning that. And then as the story goes on and she talked about how he was apparently a royal from the Order of Elephants and he was an Olympian and she looked nothing up. She didn't Google a single thing. Let me tell you something. One of the reasons why I've been like kind of standoffish when it comes to dating is that I'm afraid a man will Google me and he'll come across like me talking crazy in one of these YouTube videos and he'll be like, oh, no thanks. Like, I feel like I need 6 solid months of only doing like documentary style video essays before I try and date because I want to bury all my other shenanigans. The fact that I consider the Googleableness of you, of myself, before I even like step out into the world. If I can't Google you, if I can't find anything out on you, to me, you haven't given me all your information. I don't have everything I need to have. And that's a very, very unsafe thing too in this day and era. And maybe that's because I have Googled someone before, a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes, and found out that there were women online trying to warn women to stay away from him. Like, I've Googled someone before and found a whole second life. So someone not being Googleable, that's a funny word, Googleable, is a huge red flag for me. And then the fact that you wouldn't even do it is even bigger. And when he said in the story, he says, yeah, you can go to the website and look up this name. A couple of years ago, and I posted the story on my YouTube channel, it was called Happy October, I Got Scammed. So a couple years ago, I was walking around at Target, back when black people could shop at Target. I was walking around at Target and I got a phone call from a guy with a weird accent. And he told me he was a part of the U.S. Treasury and that my vehicle had been, or that a vehicle had been rented in my name and my social security number had been used. And I was now possibly going to be under arrest for a murder and credit card fraud and drugs, selling drugs. Somebody had because somebody rented a car under my name. They got my social security number. They got credit cards out of my name and they got this car and they filled it with drugs and they killed somebody in it. And I was in the Target out of my mind. Of course, I believed him 1,000%. And he told me this. And the only thing that kind of made me like take pause was his accent. I was like, why does he sound like this? And he called me from the U.S. Treasury number. The name that he said came up on my caller ID, and he told me, go to the website and look for this name. Can't you see my name right there? Can't you see a picture of me? The only thing that finally made me stop, I was about to be one of them senior citizens that transfers all your money. And look, I'm not one of these girls, these Tinder swindler. I'm not Onyeka. I don't have $50,000. I was about to take my little hundreds of dollars that I had and put it in a random ATM. I don't know if you've seen those scams where people convince senior citizens that they have to take all their money out and put it in. I was about to do it. And something finally clicked that he was lying. When I was like racing home, he said the police would meet me. This man had me running crazy. And he said, you don't believe me? I'll connect you with a police officer in your area to verify. I said, oh, okay. Why don't you do that? The guy gets on the phone. He goes, hey, what's up? What's up? I said, this ain't no damn police officer. I'm being run wild. And I hung up the phone and the man is calling me back and calling me back and calling me back because he's kept me on the line for like an hour, convincing me that I have been, in this situation. And I just look up Social Security fraud and it literally says, we will never ask for your number over the phone. We will mail you first. If we haven't mailed you, don't believe it. This is what they're doing. They're saying like that kind of stuff is a fraud and a scam. And people know that a lot of people might not go through the steps of Googling Social Security scam. They might not pick up on little things. They might believe everything you're saying simply because they're afraid or they're excited. And so as a consumer, once that happened to me, I had to get very, very sensitive about people telling me ways that they could verify what they were doing. You got to be able to verify that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times for me now, baby, for me to believe you. And so with her, I was like, all he said was look at the website and find a name, and you were cool with that? What about pictures? What about news articles? What about, for some reason, it really turned me off that the investigator in her head hadn't been developed yet when we're in the year 2025. We're in the year 2025. Now, this did happen to her in 2022, but even back in 2022, we still had the Tinder swindler. We still had Dateline. I don't know. But anyway, I'm listening to the story. I'm listening to various parts of the story, and I'm doing this all in different parts here because I'm trying to recap from memory because I really want to move on to some other things. But the next thing I want to point out is that she talks about how they were on a date and she got up to go to the bathroom and she passed out and started having seizures. Now, I didn't listen all the way to the end, so I don't know if she ever followed up on this, but immediately I just wrote down in my notes, he drugged her. Now, at the point of the story that I stopped listening at, she had not verified like what really happened that night. And it just bothered me that it had never happened to her before, and it had never happened to her again since then. Like, that bothered me. And I think if something like that happened to me, once again, I would immediately be like, what are you doing to me? What are you hiding? Why did this happen in front of you? Like, that's crazy. The whole thing about the epilepsy, that's insane. And there were several times in that story where I was like, that they could have stopped this. And, you may say, well, Stephanie, she was in love with him. And, when you're in love, you do. Again, for me, and listen, you're talking to a person who literally spent the last 2 years cussing somebody out, crying on the phone, going through all the motions, packing and unpacking a suitcase that they never actually like left the city with, writing email. You guys, if you know, you know. But I'm not doing shit if my money's not right, if the money's not right, if I don't feel like it's fair. And I think he did do things up front to make her feel like it was fair. She talks about, he wouldn't let me go in my wallet. He wouldn't let me do anything, So I was like, please let me help you, because I know, like, I think he knew what to do to build a foundation for her. So she would think, oh, okay, well, what I'm giving is similar to what he would give me if he could. Like, it's similar. But, I don't know. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that from the beginning, their relationship was plagued with negativity, whether it was her fainting and having all those seizures, whether it was him and the weird story about his family and cussing about his sister and the hospital, like, what's going on, whether it was his back is hurting, like, there was always new issues. And I think sometimes when you're involved with somebody, you may think, oh, well, if we can make it through this, like, that just proves that our bond is strong. But there's never been a single situation that I've ever been in where I suffer in the beginning and it actually works out. Never a single situation that I've ever been in where that happens. And Onyeka did say, I thought that these were signs that we were supposed to be together because we were going through so much together, but they were actually signs that it was never going to work out.
So something else that I wanted to speak on that I forgot to talk about in the video when I was recording was at the beginning of their relationship, at the beginning of when they first met, Martin was already exhibiting stalker-like behavior, or basically, to me, he was showing that he had her in mind for something. And I say that because from the beginning, from them first contacting or meeting each other out on the beach, he's like, well, let me get your Instagram. Now, you may say that happens all the time. Sure. But he was constantly commenting, constantly weighing in on her pictures, on her stories, on her socials, constantly trying to figure out where she was going to be. To me, immediately, I'm like, what does this man want? Now, I do understand if you're like, oh, well, maybe he was just, so blown away by her beauty. He just wanted to spend time with her while she was in town. Then he needs to say that instead of always commenting and all, whatever. And again, you can say, oh, well, he was just, trying to be cute and flirty and see what the vibe was. I don't trust white men in general. Like I said earlier, I'm always like, what are they doing? What are their plans? I would not trust a white man who I view as being attractive being so focused on me in the first place, especially when, how do I know he's not doing this to so many other women? How do I know? I wouldn't trust it. So I would already have a big sense of distrust. And I feel like that in general was missing from this story. Onyeka kept saying that at the beginning, she wasn't reading into any of his behavior, um, following, watching every story she posted online, commenting on everything, trying to figure out where her and her friend were going to be. She's like, I see him doing all this stuff and I just wasn't reading into it. I just wasn't reading into it. I am telling you from personal experience, please read into things. Please read into things. I 100% believe that most men are guilty until proven innocent. What are your intentions behind this behavior? And I'm not even most men, strangers. What are your intentions behind this behavior? What are you doing this for? And in her defense, I will say, if she has never been in a situation before where somebody has taken grave advantage of her, she may not have known how boarded up and suspicious she needed to be. I know for me, when I went through things a couple years ago and there was a person who had a whole separate life, I didn't know what I should look for. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. And when I went to a therapist, shortly after everything with us fell apart, I was told two things. The first thing I was told was, don't be so hard on myself, because I didn't know that I was a mark for him. I didn't know that part of the reason why he was so attracted to me was because he could sense my vulnerability and my stupidity. Never trust that initial, like, I'm telling you, guilty until proven innocent. So she said these men know who they're looking for. So always, always, always be suspicious of that initial like attraction, especially if he's coming on real strong or if he's doing, like, just be suspicious. The second thing is never give anybody the benefit of the doubt. Read into things. Demand validation. Demand, I should say, verification of things. And if somebody's showing you that much obsessive behavior, to me, commenting on every story, immediately interacting, I don't like that kind of thing. What is your goal? What are you doing? And I'll tell you this, as somebody who's gone on vacation and met people and like met up with them later, et cetera, et cetera, it has always been kind of like a live and let live vibe. If we see each other again, great. If we don't, great. Let's exchange numbers. You can text me if you want to see me again. I'll text you if I want to see you again. And in the times where I've texted somebody and we've been able to meet up, great. In the times where they've texted me and we haven't been able to meet up, or vice versa, great. The fact that somebody met her and just was so on her from the beginning, to me, immediately raised a red flag. And she kept saying, I wasn't reading into it. I wasn't reading into it. Please read into things. This is me imploring you. Read into things. Be suspicious. Wonder, why is this person all up on me? Especially, and I'm going to say it, I'm in a country and I meet a random white man. Why would he be following my black ass around? What does he want? Read into things. Okay, back to the video.
Now, I want to talk for a second about the reception that she got, because the reception was crazy. I knew that she might not be responded to well whenever I started seeing people making fun of her before I actually watched the videos. And so I went over and I watched the videos, and people were making fun of her because she cried when she realized she loved him, and she told him that she loved him first. And 100%, I'm sorry, but maybe you're not a water sign, so you don't get it, okay? And Onyeka's not a water sign either. She's a Gemini, but she does have a Cancer Venus, which I called just from, honestly, for me, astrology is anthropology, okay? But, like, there should be a class called astrological study of human beings. I could teach it, okay? But I just observing what she said, I was like, beep, boop, 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 beep. This is what I'm looking at here. But when you are a person that is more emotionally open, you don't have as much logic and reasoning and hyper intellectualization blocking what you feel, and you just feel. It is easy for you to fall in love, and sometimes you will realize it before the man does. Whenever people are like, since when did we start telling men we love them first? Okay, well, whatever. Shit. Sometimes you feel it first. Sometimes you want to say it first. Um, and people were making fun of her because she cried, and I was like, This is what happens when you have a lot of people who don't have a lot of life experience analyzing and critiquing something because they've never been there. So, whatever. But yeah, I started seeing people making fun of her before I actually watched it. And so I knew it wasn't going well in her favor. But there were some key audience reception things that stuck out to me and that obviously stuck out to Onyeka. And that stuck out to a lot of people who were analyzing this. The first was how clear it was that she seemed to prioritize whiteness and she seemed to trust this man because he appeared to be a white man of some pedigree and caliber. A lot of people, particularly other Nigerian Americans, Nigerian immigrants, people with maybe first generation Nigerian immigrants, because that is what Onyeka is. Well, she is Nigerian. I'm not sure if she's first generation or anything like that, but she's Nigerian. And a lot of them brought up the fact that if this had been a Nigerian man, if this had been a black man, none of this would have ever happened. That man's whiteness allowed him to come into the situation and manipulate it the way that it did. And in that way, it's just like a woman who has really good boobs and a pretty face. You know, she's not going to get in without that privilege, right? And so his very white privilege allowed him to come in and use her and use her resources. Well, that, and she desperately wanted to do these things for him. A Asian American woman made a video and she said, if Onyeka was Asian, there would be so many people who would be going easier on her because it is recognized in the Asian communities that a white partner, a white spouse, a white man specifically is something to strive for.
If the Danish Deception and Girly Pop had been Asian, the commentary would have been completely different. Everybody would have been like, oh my God, it's not a crime to fall in love. She would have been given the Risa Tisa treatment. Everybody would have felt so sorry for her. But no, Onyeka is Nigerian American, and both Black American women and African women have taken her to task. They've been like, you worship whiteness, this is the price you pay. You were being a pick-me-sha, and this is what you get. If she had been Asian, I anticipate that there would have been a lot of comments from Asian men being like, Oxford study, Oxford study. That's inherently misogynistic to say, Oxford study. And it's not really helpful because it just invites a lot of hate comments and doesn't really help people investigate their internalized white supremacy. But all the Asian women, y'all would have just been like, it's not terrible to fall in love. It's not a crime. So what, are you all just against race mixing now? My white husband would never. And actually, the thing is that there are thousands of Asian Onyekas bending over backwards, giving away their entire finances to be with some mediocre white man. It's just that our culture's a little bit different and encourages us to suffer in silence. So many Asians just don't give a shit. I will turn over your body, your bank account, your language, your food, your community. You will turn it all over to the white man. And then your only justification for that will be, but love is beautiful, segregation is bad.
And I thought about that and I was like, that's definitely something I've heard before. I heard it from my Asian friends growing up. Asian friend particularly, she started dating a black man and she was so scared because she knew the things, the hideously racist things that had been said about black people by her family members, by the people that she knew as she was growing up. And so she was very scared to like bring him in. Much different than when she would date white men. She knew that that was like a step up and that's something that she should be striving for. I've had Latina friends tell me that before, that if they brought home a black partner, one girl was like, if I brought home a black man, my grandmother would just fall flat. She'd be dead. That'd be her last day on earth. But if I brought home a white man, they would give me a pat on the back and a hug. White men are okay. I'm supposed to marry. She told me, she goes, I'm supposed to marry another Mexican man. And if I marry outside my race, he has to be white para mejorar la raza, to make the race better. And I feel like in some way, a lot of people feel that way because a lot of communities have been colonized, right? And I think the only community that may not feel that way are Black Americans, but we have a different, obviously, like relationship with white people. You might be disowned for bringing home a white partner in a Black American household. However, you will never be disowned from bringing home a partner who has good hair, from bringing home a partner who has a good nose, from bringing home a partner who has the right skin color. I'll never forget when Beyonce's dad talked about this. Matthew Knowles, he said that one of the reasons why he wanted her mama is because he thought she was a white woman. And his mama told him, don't you bring home none of them nappy-headed, dark-skinned girls. You go out and you get you a light-skinned girl with pretty hair. That's what I want for you. don't bring home nothing dark skinned and nappy headed. So while Black American people might not say, oh, you don't be dating out your race unless you did a white man or just did a white woman. We might not say that. We will still strive for approximation to whiteness, right? With certain features and characteristics. And we will prioritize reproducing with partners that have those features and characteristics. And so I think for me personally, I'm always kind of like, when I see a very chocolate woman with her very chocolate man and vice versa, I'm always like, well, all right. Because I know how deep it goes when it comes to the placing whiteness on a pedestal. Not to say that that's what's on everybody's mind when they go out and they marry or reproduce interracially. Not to say that at all. But it happens so often that it is something that can be questioned. And the fact of the matter is that I think a lot of people saw that with Onyeka. They saw that with maybe the way she presented herself. Again, like I said earlier, it doesn't look like she has any other Nigerian friends. Looks like she has a lot of white friends. That's what all her social media is. She was on a season of The Bachelor where she was trying to gain the love of a white man wearing a terrible wig. And this is how I always know when a Black woman is not in community with other Black women. Her hair, like, especially if she tries to do like a wig and she tries to, like, it's like leave out, it's not done, it's not laid. And she went on national TV like that. A couple years ago, I went to Puerto Rico and I thought it looked so pretty. I had like these dreads and I had these crochet braids, but they had grown out enough to where it kind of looked like freeform dreads in my head. The trip that I took to Puerto Rico was kind of last minute. It wasn't really planned out. I was going solo by myself. And so I didn't like go get my braids done and go get, whatever. I just went. And I got a comment from a woman over on my Patreon, and she was like, Stephanie, you must not have any Black friends. Because if you had Black friends, they would never let you go out with your hair like that. And she was a Black woman, right? And I thought to myself, well, I do have Black friends, but they weren't with me on the trip. I was by myself. And that is definitely something that only we notice. You bitch. So I blocked her. But I thought about that and I was like, that's real. When you do grow up around a lot of Black people, when you do have a lot of Black friends, you are in community with people who look like you. They do tend to call you in. There were several times when I was working as a teacher where a well-meaning Black coworker, who was my friend, but it happened 2 times at 2 different campuses, brought me a bag of wigs to school because my hair was looking so rough. So that is something that you can definitely pick up from Onyeka, that she has immersed herself in white culture in a really specific way. And that is why a lot of people were surprised, and they definitely commented on this, when she was so surprised that Black women didn't embrace her and take her in and try and protect her when she was telling this story. She made a video basically saying, I can't believe there's been so much victim blaming. I have people reaching out to me saying they went through something similar, but they're afraid to tell their story because of how I'm being treated. And I just think that's so sad. And I'm really upset at you, Black women. I'm really upset at you. You were supposed to be nicer to me. And I'm thinking, why does she think that? Why would she ever think that Black women were the ones? And it's probably because you're not in community with them. That's number one. Number two, she may have seen how Risa Tisa was treated and how Risa was unanimously just like loved and supported by Black women. And I say unanimously, it wasn't unanimous, but there was more than enough. And I think in general, just ignorance and naivete, right? But I can tell you as a person who, and those of you who know, and I've posted it about it here before, but as a person who literally received one time like a 3-page letter from a Black woman telling me I was a disgrace and an embarrassment to all Black women for the stories that I would share about my life, as a person who was friends with Black women and was told I was embarrassing them by the things that I posted on the internet, that I embarrassed them in front of their prestigious colleagues from HBCUs because of the things that I share about my life on the internet. As somebody who has been, I can tell you from my experience that if you are a Black woman, the first thing that people are going to try and figure out about you is if they can relate to you so that they can lift you up. As a Black woman speaking online about your life, your very, very first group of people who will try and support you are other Black women. They will be there first. But if they can't support you, they will rally against you the hardest. And you can't expect Black women to support you when you are doing something that adds to our collective trauma as a group, and that collective trauma is romantic trauma. When Malcolm X said there is no person in the United States less protected, less looked at than the Black woman, that also includes our romantic lives. And I don't even have to, I'm not even going to go into detail there. But I will say that a lot of the meticulousness and the hypercriticism and the hypervigilance over what we as Black women do with our lives and what we talk about and what we share comes from collective trauma. It comes from being tired of seeing stories about Black women go certain ways, whether it's watching a Tyler Perry movie where some drug addicted Black woman has gotten AIDS from her white partner or whatever else crazy shit he be doing, or whether it's just a Black woman on a reality show finding out that the man that she married got 3 kids with his former lesbian roommate and has lied about, I'll never watch Love is Blind again. Okay? There is so much collective romantic trauma within the Black female community specifically that if you get on the internet and that's what you lead with and they can tell, and I speak in third person here because, I'm the same way, but I have so much of my own trauma that I'm like, fuck it, it's my story. I can tell it if I want. If you don't like it, you don't have to be here. But I also understand that that means that I lose a lot of that audience, and I have lost a lot, right? It's just the truth. But if you jump on the internet and you're trying to tell your story of woe and you want support from this group of people that's already been attacked, already in dire need of healthy representation, healthy relationships, good love stories, and you want to tell us how you got broke down and kicked around in a situation that you could have prevented, oh, baby, you're not going to get no support. You're not going to get no support, baby. You're not going to get, and it is extremely naive and ignorant to think that you are. But if you're not in community with, and you're not paying attention to what happens when Black women do tell their stories and how other Black women, if you're not paying attention, if you're not in community, you can't pay attention to the nuances. You don't really know how that community is going to respond. So I felt badly for her because she was so offended that Black women wouldn't support her. But at the same time, I was like, baby, what did you expect? If you knew more of us and you understood and paid attention to what happens to us when we tell our stories online, then you would understand you're not special here. Black women will never stand in a line to support a woman who's, number one, is telling a romantic story of woe, unless it's funny. I can speak from experience. If you can entertain and you're entertaining, that's different. But if you're just wanting to complain about how a man did you so wrong, and we can tell, Black women can tell that was your fault, you're not going to have, you're not going to, the support's going to be out the window, baby. Mm-hmm. And she was very surprised that she was hearing it the loudest from Black women. Well, algorithmically, your story's being pushed out to us first. Just FYI. That's how it happens. Like, I know when I make a video, like on TikTok or something, I know I'm being pushed to Black women first, then other people. That's just how it's set up. So you can't be upset that your largest possible audience is like, we don't like this, and responding so much. And it wasn't just Black women, by the way. There were several women from several places who were like, I don't like this. I don't like this story. There was one woman who was Danish, and she was like, instead of calling this a Danish Deception, let's call this a Danish Delusion, because that girl was so delusional. And she was a white woman with blonde hair. Like, so I think you hear Black women the loudest because you're going to be marketed to us more. And we are a group who is desperately in need of good stories. And if you come in with some bullshit and it's not entertaining, and we could tell you're just setting yourself up to fail, nobody owes you anything, right? I hope that makes sense. Really quickly before I close out, I want to talk about, once again, what I wish people who come online to share their stories understood about storytelling. The first thing is that no one owes you empathy. No one. If you're able to tell a story and get empathy and compassion from people, that's great. Good for you, but nobody owes you that. Nobody owes you that. The second thing is you need to wait until you have some distance so you can hear how you sound to someone who you can hear how you sound. Whenever she was telling her story, there was a couple parts where people were like, is she a snob? What's going on here? And one of them in particular was, she said that her ex had been seen with somebody, and she described the woman as being a street hooker and a 1 out of 10. And to me, I was like, girl, why you set yourself up like that? Why did you do that? First of all, that is talking about another woman, which you talked about losing black women. You're going to lose all women with that. Secondly, a 1 out of 10, that is now going to call into question your looks. And while you look beautiful, you know, all made up, I'm sure, listen, we all ebb and flow, right? There are some people out there who can say without a shadow of a doubt, you're a 1 out of 10, I'm a 10 out of 10, baby. I don't think she's one of those people. My opinion, just my opinion. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But what she did when she said that was she opened herself up to being attacked for her own looks. And I think you're likely to make comments like that and to think that way when you're still hurting. And according to her story, according to what I've heard, her divorce was finalized at the beginning of November, this month. And she actually married that man too. That was, oh God, it was such a mess. I opted out. I'm sorry. If you listened all the way to the end, you're better than me. I watched other stuff. All Her Fault on NBC. That's very good. Or on Peacock. That's very good. That's what I watched. I was like, I want to hear a murder or a mystery thriller. I'm down for it, but not this. I don't want this. So I went and watched something else. But she's so fresh. She's so close to it. The biggest mistakes that I've made have been when I've started talking about something too soon. When it's been too soon. Like a couple years ago when I went on my last girls trip ever. I probably should have waited about 2 months before I actually posted that story. Because then I would have been able to go back and listen to my tone. I'm still pissed here. So I'm mocking people. I'm making fun of them. Let me go back and, okay, this is not a detail I need. You almost need, when you tell stories online, you need to be able to tell it how you feel it. Just get it out sometimes. And then you need to be able to tell it in a way that is suitable for an audience that provides the least amount of negative audience feedback. And now I've been doing this for so long that when I tell a story, I'm often self-editing as I'm talking. So I'll be like, ooh, I want to say it like this, but that's going to produce negative audience feedback. So I need to say it like this. That's going to be better. And that is actually like, I mean, I'm sorry, but you can never be 100% just whatever on the internet. You should have some form of quality control testing before you share anything. I know that Diary of a CEO, I was reading once, like that hugely popular podcast, they go through so many rounds of audience testing before posting something to make sure that they are optimizing how people will respond to what they have to say. And nothing is ever an accident when they post it. And, you know, for those of us who have a smaller round to work with, we have to think the same way. There's things that I've recorded before and I go back and I listen to them. And now that I've been doing this long enough, I'm like, okay, I'm listening for red flags when it comes to audience feedback. And I'll take out entire chunks. And sometimes I have to take out so much of it that I have to just re-record the whole thing. A way that you can stop that you don't have to be so hard on yourself, is just giving yourself more time before you talk about it. Now, I will say, to me, that calling her a street hooker and 1 out of 10, that's very classist and it reeks of ego. But for the most part, I felt like she was a good storyteller. For the most part, I felt like I enjoyed listening to her to a certain point. And so I'm not necessarily sure that more time would have made her story better. I think maybe more time would have made her story irrelevant, because she would have realized that the only person who was deceived here is her, and she did it to herself.
I want to stress that final point too before we close out, because that is one thing that I have noticed really makes audiences angry. If you are a woman and you are telling a story of woe and romantic heartbreak, and you don't lead with the fact that it could have been all your fault, people will tar, feather, and drag you out to the city square so they can stone you to death. Do you understand me? The fact that people scream from the rooftops for women to take accountability, women should own up. Women need to own up. I don't necessarily understand that, because I understand that when somebody goes through something and they're hurting and they're telling it from that angle, it doesn't mean they'll never realize that they could have possibly had something to do with it. It doesn't mean that they don't take ownership for what they did wrong. I don't assume that, but I know for me personally, as a storyteller, something that has always made me deeply roll my eyes is when I get the feeling from the audience, like looking in the comment section or whatever, that people are like, oh, so you think you're a victim, huh? You didn't think you brought this on yourself? You didn't think. It's like, okay, people, okay, I get it. And I'll be honest with you, even telling stories and being like, okay, so this was my bad. I made a mistake here. I did this and I know it. And this is why I did this. Okay, just really quickly before I get into this, I know this was a bad choice, but I do want to tell the story. That sometimes isn't even good enough for people. The way to safely tell a story online, I feel like a lot of times, especially if you're a woman telling a story of romantic woe, is to completely lead with, last year, I made the stupidest choice. And I'm warning you guys so you don't end up like me, like completely leading from a place of accepting personal fault and not ever leading from a place of, this is what this terrible man did to me. Because, it's like I said with the Risa Tisa situation. If people don't see you as like the perfect victim, if people don't see you as somebody who was 100% not in the wrong for what happened to you, they will completely write you off, especially if you are a woman and you have a bunch of compounding factors like Onyeka did, issues with money boundaries, issues with platforming white, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult for people to find compassion. They don't have a lot of bandwidth for it. Okay. And if you're leading with, this is what happened to me, people are going to think, so you want me to feel sorry for you? And you can just go ahead and X all of that out by leading with, hey, up front, I did one of the stupidest things. Even if you don't feel like you deserve, because I'm going to tell you, honestly, she didn't deserve what happened to her. She deserved to meet somebody who was a royal, who, listen, she didn't deserve this. You don't deserve terrible things just because you might be a little naive and ignorant. Okay. She didn't deserve, but it still happened. And if you're telling people about it on the internet, unfortunately, you have to lead with, this is how I know I brought this on myself. I'm not just a victim. I'm not just Bambi. I understand. I can take the buzzword of the decade, right? I can take accountability for what occurred. But here's my story. Lead with how you know you were at fault first, or be prepared to lose a lot of people who will be arguing with themselves and you over whether or not you think you're a victim and whether or not they can feel bad for you. The amount of times that I saw people saying, I don't feel bad for her. She wants me to feel bad for her. I went, no, fool. Nobody ever told you you had to feel bad for her. But that's what some people will hear. They will hear you telling your sob story and they'll be like, what? So what, you want me to feel bad for you? It's like, no, I just wanted to express so to cut all that out, to cut that out, to cut out the middleman, literally begin with, okay, so I made the dumbest decision and I am telling you girls about it so you don't do what I did. I know it was dumb. And even if you do that, I'm going to be real with you, you still going to have folks in the comments talking about, oh, well, that's your fault. Well, this is your fault. I don't see why. So sometimes some stuff, it's like they said in The Wiz, you can't win, right? But you stand a better chance of getting the audience on your side if you at least lead with what you know you did wrong in the situation. The amount of people that were mad at her because they didn't feel like she understood how she brought this on herself was predictable, right? Anyway, back to my video.
And in that way, it might have flipped her whole narrative over, and she might have been able to tell it from a different point of view and gotten the audience response that she really, really desired, which was compassion, which was support, which was the Risa Tisa guide to fame. And listen, she might still get that. I remember looking at her comment section a couple days ago, and there was somebody in there who was like, Dallas Morning News reporter, check your DMs. Like, she's already been on TV. She might still get something out of this. But as far as Risa Tisa fame and success, no. No. Because to put it simply, people did not like her and they did not like her story. And so once that is the case, there's only so far you can go. And today I saw somebody uploading a new story time on TikTok. That place moves fast. So it seems like what's going to happen with the Danish Deception is that I don't know, actually. I don't know. But it seems like people might just move on. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. So that's my feedback for it. Again, like I said, I did not want to go. And I'll be honest with you, if I had gone step by step and like how I was going to, I was making notes for every part. We would have been here forever. But I like to keep my videos here slightly under an hour. So that's going to be the end of this video. Did you listen to the series? Did you listen all the way through? What did you think of it? Again, I was on board for listening to it. I thought that we were going to find out. I thought that we were going to find out some other stuff, but I was really turned off when, she's screaming, "Oh, no, no, the vampires are here. The vampires are here." But she told them to come inside. You know what I'm saying? I lost my empathy. I lost my connection to her as a protagonist. And then I was really turned off by the parts of life that I couldn't relate to. Having thousands and thousands of dollars to give a man. Going on so many vacations. Why couldn't she ever celebrate Christmas at home? I didn't get that. She has to go to New York for Christmas and Boston for Christmas. Where's your family? You can't go home and spend Christmas with your family? I didn't like that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I dropped out early. But if you stayed all the way to the end, please feel free to maybe say your favorite part or whatever in the comments. What was your feedback? I would love to know. As always, thank you for watching.